Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friends of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Brad.
And I'm your host, Sarah.
And this week on the show, we are talking about The Bad Batch Season 3, episodes 4 through episodes 8, A Different Approach, The Return, Infiltration, and Extraction. A little four-parter here on the show, Sarah. Not our typical sixer or sevener episode, you know, those extravaganzas that are kind of like once every solar eclipse, you would say. Although we have a solar eclipse coming up, so maybe we'll be feeling a little funky around that time.
Let's cancel this episode right now and do it then. And then we can do our however many episode extravaganza. Honestly, our Resistance 7-episode extravaganza was really something. It was basically me just being really, really busy in college. And so many people listened to that episode, which was so funny to me because we really just recapped 7 episodes in one go.
One of our top of the year, somehow.
Very weird. But we're here to talk about 4 solid episodes today. And that means we'll be able to give a little bit more time to each of them, I hope, than 7 in one episode. And we've got a lot to talk about because a lot has happened for our characters in the span of 4 episodes. And we're not, well, I guess we're kind of in the halfway of this season. It has, 15 episodes. So we're at 7. So like, you know, by Friday of the week that this episode of the show comes out, it will be halfway through the season because it will be halfway, well, maybe Saturday, halfway between when episodes 7 and 8 come out. I will stop talking because I'm just being annoying now.
I feel like we're getting into bad territory here. You know, things are getting a little dangerous. And I say that because the next episode is called Bad Territory.
Wow, that wasn't, you know, this is why you
clap,
do
clap,
the
clap.
transitions, because that was like a really good connection, a really good talking point that I would have never made because I don't have the brain cells for that. But like, good on you for thinking on your feet and saying the words.
You know, I might know the most Star Wars lore of any Star Wars fan out there. Ever, potentially, even more so than George. Simply by having a Wikipedia page pulled up with the episode title. So that's that.
Do you have Wikipedia?
Actually, no, I have Wikipedia. I lied.
Oh, because I also have Wikipedia, and I thought it would be interesting if one of us had Wikipedia and one of us had Wikipedia, but I'm unwilling to change because they have nice episode descriptions here for me to refer back to when I need it.
Yeah,
so
and they have the directors
crutch.
and the writers, which, by the way, we had Saul Ruiz, Nate Villanueva, Stuart Lee, again, those heavy hitters. Ezra Nachman, who I think is a first-time writer on the show, they did write in season 2, I believe. As well as Amanda Rose Munoz and Jennifer Corbett, Matt McNevets, Brad Rao. So a couple different writers. Again, I think that's a strength of the show, is having, you know, just an assortment of people coming in and doing their thing. I love that. I love a writer's room. But yeah, these episodes, Sarah, I know we were talking with Molly on our last episode, and
Yes.
we were pretty happy that the escape happened so early in the season because we were worried, like, is this going to drag out over 8 episodes? And then, you know, we're just kind of waiting. And I have to say, getting the reunion, which was one of my concerns, I was like, okay, well, now how long is it until Omega and Crosshair get back with the batch?
Right.
Happy to say the next episode after we get the long-awaited reunion.
Right.
I was very happy about that. How do you feel about that happening so early in the season? And now we have just like the rest of the series with our characters and with our core group.
Right. So what it tells me is that Tech is alive. Right, because this could have been the crux of the whole season.
Could have been an email, right?
No,
like if Tech is not alive,
Stop.
it could have been an email.
Stop. I'm saying this could have been the crux of the whole season. This could have been the point of the season. But we got to it very quickly, which means there's more to happen, which that is Tech being alive. But I thought that this reunion happening so quickly here in the next episode was really nice because it allows all of our characters to grow as a team again. And we also get Echo back, plus some friends later on. But just kind of getting the gang back together after everybody had split up, and the just the temporary separation of Tech from the team. Temporary separation, nothing serious, guys. Of the team. So having them all back together and interacting with each other in new ways, because a lot of shit has gone down, is really compelling and is something that I definitely wanted to see. So I'm glad that we're getting it.
This feels like the strongest the show has ever been, because I feel like it has a very strong sense of direction and what it wants to be. It is setting up this clone rebellion because we're wondering what is the rest of the series if the escape has already happened, and it's leaning toward this direction of our brothers are still on Mount Tantus. We have to go rescue them and liberate them from their captivity. And I feel like that's really interesting, and like having all these clones in the mix, and you're seeing these forgotten, discarded, disposable soldiers of war who were bred for one purpose and are now forging a new purpose for themselves that has a bit more meaning, and still maintains that the sense of loyalty that they have to each other. And I think that's kind of inspiring. You know, I think it's really neat that war didn't take away these clones' identity, right? They're not just numbers. They're still, you know, they're still Gregor. They're still Wolf, right? They're still Rex. But on the other side of the equation, now you have these soldiers, these shadow soldiers, I think they're called a couple of times, who are literally having their numbers scrubbed. So we don't know who they are. They're losing their identity, right? So I think this is like really a battle of clone identity. And it's like, how many of our brothers can we liberate before they quite literally lose who they are with whatever sort of brainwashing operation the Empire has going on with these soldiers? Because like identity is all the clones had. That's what made the Clone Wars so special, is because we thought we were getting a show just about like war. And it was like, no, these clones have personality. They have individuality. They have their own names. And that's what distinguishes them from the rest of droids. I don't know. Do you find that like a really compelling idea? Just the like clone liberation. I know there's like an appetite for that sort of storyline and in the fandom.
They probably read all of our tweets about Tross and wanting the Stormtrooper liberation in The Rise of Skywalker, which we did not get, and that would have been incredible. It lives on in my headcanon. No, I joke about that, but I am glad that it looks like we're setting up to get it here, because I think that is a compelling story, and I think there is an appetite for it in the Star Wars fandom, because we see so much of the clones and so much of the troopers, and there really is an actual individual behind every single one of them. And we've gotten Finn as like a stormtrooper or ex-stormtrooper. And we've gotten other kind of characters throughout the series who have been humanized as various kinds of troopers and individual, and been able to be individuals, especially through the Clone Wars. But we're still missing that like huzzah moment, because we know how the Clone Wars ends. We know what happens there. So I feel like the cavalry has arrived. Episode 15 title really kind of signals now, with a little bit more of added context of these episodes, what we'll get in the final episode, I hope. So yeah, like I'm really excited by this prospect, and it was great also in the infiltration extraction episodes to see all of the secondary characters that we know from other Bad Batch and Clone Wars stories here all together. Hot Hauser.
Hot Hauser is back.
Hot Hauser is back. Here all together in these episodes. It's becoming a who's who of who's alive as the clone. So yeah, no, I really think that's great.
Hauser's a unique one too, because I think the last time we saw him,
he's extra hot.
Extra hot, yes,
that's right.
And I think the last time we saw him, he was gonna get captured by like Crosshair and his infantry. So you know that Rex and the crew have been putting in the work while they've been off screen. They've been putting in the work. I really love that we're like, oh, they've really put together quite the cavalry, like you're saying. And I would have no complaints if the rest of the season is spent with this bigger group.
Right.
I would assume we're going to get a detour or two with the Bad Batch, maybe doing some sort of intel mission and trying to get more information on Mount Tantus. But like overall, if this is where we're heading and this is who we're staying with, I'm all in, because I think just the sense of purpose is stronger than ever. And I really enjoy that about where we're at in the show.
I also think that like the show's direction, like we're 7 episodes in, and I feel like it's been really quite focused throughout. So that's been really nice too, because, you know, we go back to seasons 1 and 2, and there have been some excellent standout great episodes, but especially in season 1 there's kind of a lot of mission of the week, which of course, as we've said before, totally serves a purpose, is totally valid. We support mission of the week. But we're definitely getting less of that now. It really feels like we have a strong narrative direction for the rest of the season. So I'll be curious to see if we get any kind of side questy mission of the week beyond kind of episode 2-ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's rewind a little bit and go to some of those smaller stories that I think are told in this 4-episode arc that we're covering, which is A Different Approach and The Return. I think those were 2 that are smaller in scale, but had a lot of meaning and a lot of good storytelling happening. It doesn't have the action sequences, but you don't always need that. They do have a fair amount of action sequences that are really exciting. Episode 4, we get the whole chase through the city and escape from the landing bay area, and the one Imperial lieutenant who plays, I think it's Sabacc or some sort of card game with Omega, and there's a lot of tension there in the air. You could, it's so thick you could cut through it with a cheese knife.
The cheese knife, nothing sharper.
Yeah.
No, I let's talk about that episode because I thought that was really compelling. We have both. What I love about this is both like Crosshair and Omega get a lot of time in this episode, and they have different approaches. But in like Omega's so earnest and such a go-getter. We love her. We stand. She's never done anything wrong in her life. And we get to see, Omega be independent and independently go for things with Crosshair. And so that just kind of adds a new dynamic to the team that we haven't seen in a while.
Absolutely. And I think something we might be, at least I can't speak for everybody, but sometimes I have to remind myself, these are 2 characters that didn't spend a lot of time with each other at the beginning of the series, right? Like they met maybe an episode or 2, and then Crosshair goes off from the group. And ever since then, it's only been these close encounters where, they rescue Crosshair on Kamino and they are running away from him.
That early on in the show?
Yeah. Yeah. The end of that 2 or 3 episode opening for the series, it ends with like them escaping to Poca City and Crosshair being like, I'm going to follow orders. Screw you guys. I'm leaving you. Like, we're not doing it this way.
Oh man. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So yeah.
I mean, that was 2021. That was like a bajillion years ago. Wow.
Yeah. So I think it's really cool that all the time we're getting with Omega and Crosshair is truly like their first,
very fresh.
Like, they're really fresh to each other. I mean, I know Omega had that moment in season 1 when they were in captivity before Crosshair makes a decision to stay. When she, I think like holds his hand or puts her arm on his arm in the cell, and they have like a little bonding moment there. And we're seeing a lot of that continue. And I think a lot of Omega is rubbing off on Crosshair. She's so warm and friendly. And I think it's helping Crosshair to break out of his shell. Like he's warming up to Batcher a little bit. And in the infiltration episode, he's like, do you have your gear? Do you know how to use your crossbow? Like, you need me to carry something for you? And she's like, dude, I'm good. Right.
Literally,
but like his
his
fatherly instincts are coming out. Omega's imitating him with the toothpick on the ship. Like, it's so good.
That line in that moment, she goes, man, something like, oh, you're worse than Hunter. And he's like, I'm a lot worse than Hunter.
Yes.
Like, LOL, cracking jokes out here, Crosshair.
That was a good one.
But they get to like poke each other a little bit and be these total opposites in terms of understanding of the world, in terms of, outlook and thought processes, and just like how they show their emotions, if they show their emotions. Crosshair. But Crosshair, cry every once in a while, bestie. But I really, really like their dynamic. And so I was a little bit like, oh no, they've met up with the rest of the team so early, because I was enjoying it. But like I'm not going to complain about them meeting up early, because that means Tech is alive. But no, it just means we get all the team back together, which was kind of I remember something that we kind of felt a little bit disappointed by the fact that they split up. in last season are just a little bit like, why?
And even when they do get back together, the tension is so interesting between Hunter and Wrecker and Crosshair. Like, it's not just open arms. Hey, welcome back. Like, we missed you. And that's the point of the the fifth episode, the return, when they go back to the planet where Crosshair killed the Imperial officer. I would imagine that's why it's called the return, right? They go back to that planet.
I was shooketh that we were there. I just have to say that up front. I was like, oh, I remember this.
Totally. And all of the shots of Hunter judging and keeping an eye on Crosshair and not really fully understanding what he went through in that episode, which I believe was titled The Outpost. And Crosshair taking the time to pick up the clone helmets and put them in a proper place. And I would assume later on bury the helmets because they have shovels at one point. So I would imagine they gave those clones a proper burial or whatever was left of them, so they're not just like sitting on a crate. But what did you feel about some of the conversations that Hunter and Crosshair had during this episode and how they kind of clashed but overcame it? Do you feel like that felt like a pretty fulfilling moment?
Yeah, totally. For me, the just talk to each other. One of you guys is going to have to get over yourself. Both of you are going to have to get over yourself and talk to each other. Was great. And I think the tension made a lot of sense because, like, of course they're brothers, they're a team, and the whole point of like the first season is like they still have hope in Crosshair. Even though he's made a different choice, we're still going to offer him a spot back here despite it all. And now that that's happening and they're not going to go back on their word, because why would they? But also like, I don't totally feel good about having you here right now and with everything that's happened. So I thought that was all emotionally fulfilling and interesting and valuable.
But hey, we did keep your armor. We just couldn't get rid of it, right?
Right. They love him. They love him. They don't know how to trust him totally. They feel a little bit uncomfy. Everybody's struggling here because choices have been made and there are consequences for our choices. But like, why would I throw away your armor? That's my brother. I love that. Redemption for everybody, Yeah,
100%. And that's what I loved about Resistance with Tam's story. Tam is getting a way more, or Crosshair is getting a way more fleshed out version of what I wish Tam had gotten in season 2 or possibly like a season 3 of Resistance. And again, that's just like timing and show not continuing, so to speak. But I think having that tension, and it's not just sunshine and daisies, and Crosshair still having to explain himself, but also being given a chance to explain himself and being given the space to do that. And yeah, you're right. Omega just saying, just talk to each other, right? Yeah. How much of Star Wars would be solved if people just talked to each other? Makes me think of Anakin being like to his mom, the galaxy would be so much better if people just helped each other, right?
Yeah.
And it's like such a simple minded way of thinking, but sometimes the most simple minded thing is like the best solution. And Omega has like a knack for just connecting with people and understanding emotion, and she can be that mediator. I feel like she was serving like the parent role of like, kids, make up with each other, say you're sorry, come on.
Right. And then at one point she like goes to Crosshair early, I think it's in like episode 4, and is like, yeah, little brother. I was like, get him, crush him. Like she just is, I mean, we're never going to say anything bad about Omega. She's perfect. I mean, she's literally everything under the sun. I could cry about how much I love Omega, but she serves as the emotional mediator and the emotional heart for all of the characters, because they've all got their thing, and Echo's Echo's like super traumatized, but he's at least like the most emotionally well-rounded, I think, or like the most well-rounded personality of the batch. Hunter's kind of stern but loving, and Wrecker's just he's a goofy dude, and Crosshair's like, I hate everything, everything is bad, like all the time. So, and Tech is like, I'm a nerd. So she gets to balance all of them out. So we love her for that. Yeah.
What did you make of Crosshair's comment to Hunter about, you're just mad I was the one that rescued her and not you, or something along those lines? Do you feel like part of Hunter's pride was getting in the way of his feelings towards Crosshair? Do you think Crosshair was onto something there?
Yes.
I would agree with that too.
That's the answer to the question. I mean, Crosshair is ultimately, there's a bit of truth in that for sure, because Hunter is Hunter. And he's a leader and he's a man. Therefore, he is flawed.
I don't know. Like, Hunter has always felt like the one who's had the most paternal instinct of the group with Omega.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the moment with the toothpick that I mentioned, where she's looking at Crosshair and she's doing the toothpick in her mouth, and there is a moment where it's from Hunter's point of view, and he looks at Crosshair, and then he pans left. He looks at Omega doing the same thing, and there's like a little moment of recognition of like, oh, like Omega can have more than just me. Like, and I think that's okay. And I think she needs that, right? Like, I shouldn't be the only one who's sort of that father figure, and her and Crosshair must have gone through a lot together. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And I think maybe some of that was initially getting in the way with Hunter of like, she trusts him more than me, like a little bit of jealousy in a way.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I got. And I'm glad they overcame it with each other.
Right. I agree. Like, I definitely think that's baked into his character for sure. And I think it's important that they do get over it, because the team can't be well-rounded and work together until they do.
And all it took was a giant Star Wars worm.
Yeah. WYRM worm. Literally, like, open up those subtitles. It will read worm. With a
I feel like we're entering our worm era. Would you still podcast with me if I were a worm? Real question. The answer is no. The silence is telling. The silence speaks volumes, Sarah.
It's just the would you love me if I were a worm question, but would you podcast with me if I were a worm? But also, riding the sandworm, and now we've got the worm with a Y. I mean, wow.
We got the Attack of the Clones worms. We got the worms in Escape from Valhalla. We're bringing back worms in Star Wars.
Well, we got like a worm snake in The Rise of Skywalker too.
Yeah. What if we get worms in Acolyte? What if we get Andor worms?
I think we've gotta. Worms are just baked into the Star Wars DNA. Would I podcast with you if you were a worm? Now, I might have to say no, but only because I think the editing responsibility would fall to me, and I don't think I have the focus to do that. Or maybe I have too much focus to do that, and then I would not show up to work.
I mean, you could also keep in whatever you want. And if I were a worm, I wouldn't say anything. So you could talk about K-pop and I wouldn't even respond. I would just be there.
Captive audience, Brad, to all my K-pop nonsenses. You're changing my mind here, Brad. Become a worm.
It's like the meme where the guy is being very expressive, but he's talking to a wall, and it's like you, but instead of a wall, it's a worm.
Yeah, that meme is what all the speech kids used in school, because we would actually practice our speeches to walls. That's if you go to a speech and or like a speech forensics, not like speech and debate, but like they're the same thing, but not the debate part. If you go to a speech and forensics like meet, you will see a bunch of teens in suits talking to walls. Some of them will be doing characters at the walls, and then some of them will be doing like a famous TED talk at the walls. It's such a thing. I know this is a complete left turn from the Bad Batch, but I just needed to share that because it's a core memory for me.
Can we do like a wall episode where we talk about walls in Star Wars and like wall designs in Star Wars specifically, like, and then we also podcast facing a wall. We don't even see each other. We're just talking to a wall. It's our special talking to the wall episode. We can talk about the glove wall in Andor. How about that? We'll just do a glove wall.
The glove wall in Andor. We could talk about the Imperial walls that have like the rectangle-ish ones, but I don't know what other walls there are. We'd have to
There's
have
something
a
there. There's something
to say
there.
something. There'd have to be something to be said about the walls, and I don't know what I'd say yet. So
we'll cook. We'll cook a little bit.
We'll cook on it. Yeah.
Anyways, back to the Bad Batch. But yeah, I really love this episode. I also loved, I love the hug when Wrecker runs over and they hug.
Yes.
And Echo's just like, wow, there wasn't even blood this time. They always make up. That was heartwarming, you know, and one could say maybe that tension should have gone on a little longer. And I think there still will be some tension. Like we see it with Hauser and Rex, who are a bit hesitant with Crosshair when he shows up. And we'll see more of that, but I like that we're seeing progress. You know, it's not just like, let's spend like 6 episodes hating Crosshair. You know, it's like we're warming up to him. It's going to take a little bit, but it's happening.
And the audience has to be endeared to Crosshair because Tech is alive and Crosshair is the missing link in order to rescue Tech.
Do you want to get into Tech Talk? Welcome to my Tech Talk.
I mean, we're on the return right now. And before we talk about Tech, I just do want to talk about the little bit of Pabu that we got to see.
Oh, yes.
In this episode, because that's at the beginning of this episode. Like Crosshair is practicing his aim on Pabu, and they're all there. And I was just so delighted to see that this was like a returning point, like a home for them still. And that this was like a home base for them, because the end game is I want them to live happily. Like all the clones on Pabu, they're all gonna live happily ever after. Like that's, at the end of the day, that's what I want for them. And so I was glad that we didn't forget about Pabu here, and we got that moment. That was a place that felt like home for the Batch.
Oh God, you're so right. I mean, like Pabu just being the home for all the clones, like all the clones would be the most happily ever after ever in Star Wars. Like it'd be so good. It'd be so damn good.
That's what the clones deserve. If this series doesn't end with like a clan of clones on Pabu, like I'm quitting. Like I can't. Like the clones cannot have a bad ending in this show. That would be so disappointing.
One should note also the similarities between the shape of Pabu and the shape of Mount Tantiss, because I feel like they're both sort of like big mounds that are like, they're not like true mountains, but I guess they are. But they're both kind of these just like central locations where like one, the clones are thriving, and then the other, the clones are in captivity and being stripped of identity, right? And
you know what?
Kind of like a light and dark.
Now I'm like, there's no way that wasn't unintentional. They totally juxtapose each other in that way. That's actually very thoughtful. I think you might have been saying that just to say that, but I think that's actually super real.
You know, I have a thought every now and then, and sometimes they're good thoughts, and sometimes mostly they're trash thoughts. But you know, the good thoughts happen.
The good thoughts happen, and you just had one, because I mean, I think we're gonna ultimately see that juxtaposition like really come to fruition at the end of the series. I think that's going to be the heart of it. I hope so, because that would be really interesting and I think visually compelling. But also, now that we're here, we have to do a mountainous episode of the podcast. We can talk about the Yavin base. We can talk about Mount Tantiss. We can talk about Pabu, or just sort of like, you know, mountain pyramid.
Recorded sort of during our Mount Everest expedition, where we ascend the mountain, and we record at like the halfway point where like most people turn back. We don't turn back. We don't. We're not cowards.
Right. We don't.
We
finish
stop
the series because we die.
We stop. We pee into a bottle, and then we start podcasting content.
My God.
Where some people may face death, we face content. What did you think of your boy AZ coming back? And helping Crosshair with target practice.
See, this is the deal. This is the deal. I was like, oh, Pabu, that's nice. AZ, like,
my boy.
It's
been a minute.
It's been a minute, but like, you know, I'm always delighted to see my favorite droids out and about in the world. Like, what am I gonna? I love them. I love them. When certain droids show up again, Escape from Valo, I cheer. I cheer. So here's me cheering about AZ. What a precious being. We stand. Thank you.
I love that he was like, hey, your success rate is 58%. You need to up your game. Crosshair's like,
and he's like, my hand is trembling. I don't know what to do about this. I'm trying.
Is there going to be a super dramatic moment where Crosshair has to make the shot and
Yes.
He's trembling and the camera's
And he
up
gets
close
it.
and then he just breathes and all of a
And
sudden it's
that's
just,
how we save Tech, who is
Yes.
alive.
Okay, we keep alluding to it. Let's talk about Tech.
Being
Let's
alive.
talk about Shadow clones. Let's talk
Okay.
about Clone X.
Okay.
Infiltration starts with Senator Chuchi, by the way,
Yeah.
meeting on Raxus with
Okay.
Avi Singh.
I
I
was
did not
like-
expect to see Avi Singh again. I'll be honest.
No, I was so delighted that we got our politicians back, because I think one of my criticisms in season 2 was like, oh, this thread was really good. I wish we had pulled on it more. I wish there was more of this politics, because it was really, really compelling. And like, of course, Chuchi being at the center of that. And so to see our politician sort of characters have a conversation and show back up in season 3 was very exciting for me. And then they're not there for the rest of the episode after, like, you know, whatever. But like, we got them.
The Empire doesn't realize what it's done in making allies of former separatists and former Republic loyalists. You know, that's the unintended consequence of being a fascist government. So have fun with that, Empire.
I mean, is it the unintended consequence of fascist governments? Because I feel like the fascism thing is like, you're either with us or you're definitely like an enemy of the state and of the people. So I mean, like, and like, of course, the enemy of the enemy is my friend, of course. So I will team up with my buddies to take down the evil government.
Unintended in the sense that they don't want it to happen and they expect it won't happen under their reign because they're that arrogant and
well, that's what
power hungry.
All about.
Yeah. But like in the eyes of the people, like this is the natural outcome, right?
Right.
I thought the assassination attempt was really interesting, and I thought the capture of the Shadow rogue clone is sort of to remind us, hey, these guys exists. You know, we saw one briefly a couple episodes ago, whether it's the same one or a different one. But we see this one, the helmet comes off, there's a big dramatic reveal. Oh my God, it's a clone. Like, it's to the audience, it's saying, hey, remember this. This is important, right? And what happens next? We get a new clone, helmeted, voice modulator. Why have I been activated? Well, our last one has gone off the grid. You need to go find him, right? And there are just so many signs pointing to this is Tech. 100,000%.
Like,
it is
like
Tech.
this is Tech, or like Tech is one of these guys?
No, I think specifically this one. I think the first guy in the beginning of the episode was to remind us there are clones behind these helmets.
Okay.
And then you can bring in Tech to say, okay, now here's another one. We're not going to show you who it is. We're going to modulate the voice. You don't know who the voice is. That just, those all feel like very intentional choices. And a lot of other things that we can dive into in a little bit, but like, whether or not you think this is Tech, do you think Tech is one of these soldiers?
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like, I think this is a way to keep Tech alive and in the picture, and a villain and somebody we, you know, who's a part of the enemy, and we strip him of his identity, you know, therefore he becomes kind of just a body, a mind control guy, a zombie, essentially. But of course, our lovely Bad Batch will see him still as Tech, see him as a person, see him as valuable and worthy of existence, because that is what it's all about in the Bad Batch. And maybe what Star Wars is all about. High Republic. Anyway. But yeah, I think that this seems like a clear path to go, because otherwise, why do we keep bringing back the Shadows?
Yeah, 100%. And I think if they can save Tech, then they can save all the rest of these clones, right?
Aha.
The big question is, what do we do? What did the Empire do to these clones?
Okay.
They've lost their identity, but like if we can save Tech, anybody is worth saving or possible to be saved.
So do you think what comes first, the chicken or the egg? The saving of the clones or the saving of Tech?
I think their mission is going to be saving the clones. They're going to realize Tech is alive, and then the mission will become saving Tech first, because if they can figure out this assassin situation, then they'll add more to their numbers and get all the other clones, right? Like they got to figure out the situation and what's going on with these guys first. Because they don't want to be in hot water when they show up to Mount Tantus and they got 20 of these dudes coming in with blaster rifles and trying to shoot everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's like a real threat. And it's really interesting too that all these, or at least the ones that we've seen, are modeled very closely to Crosshair. They have the same sniper rifle. They got the same kind of helmet. Even the speaking of the Clone X, that we'll call them, even though the voice is modulated, they talk like Crosshair. It's like, that was our order. You know, like they talk in that sort of very enunciated way that Crosshair speaks.
Huh.
I don't know. Do you feel like there's any intentionality there? Are they trying to model, you know, they knew Crosshair was so like such a good soldier, you know, that they wanted to model all these other ones after him. And it's ironic because they couldn't turn him into one, you know,
right? Well,
because he already was one.
That's really interesting. Like, I mean, on a technical note, they are all spoken by the same actor. So
on a technical
how many variations on that voice can he do? But also, yeah, I could see that as being intentional or a side effect of, you know, whatever. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Let's talk through some examples of why this is tech. Are you ready?
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Okay. First off,
right.
This is a show about the Bad Batch. We are missing.
You're so real for saying that.
Point one. We are missing a member of the Bad Batch who has died. We are being told by the creators that he is dead.
He's not dead.
He's very dead, according to everybody.
I
let's remind you of that, everybody. At
did
Celebration,
we see a body?
He's very dead.
Did we see a body?
Listen, if Darth Maul can fall down
Jennifer
a little
Corbett,
chasm
Brad
thing and survive, Tech is alive. But why bring a character into the picture when we know they're just clones, right? We know they're just clones behind the mask. So then why bring in this extra one and add this like whole shroud of mystery around them with the voice modulating? Like, why modulate the voice? If we know they're all clones, why can't it just be a normal clone voice, right? They're hiding something.
Yeah.
And who is the only clone with a British accent? What sounds like a British accent? Tech, right? Like, we're going to know. We're going to know it's Tech as soon as we hear him, right? So there's case in point one, like very intentional choices. Case in point two, there's this moment when Clone X is fighting Crosshair. It's a very emotional battle. Who was the one that always felt like Crosshair was worth saving? I'm pretty sure it was Tech, wasn't it? Wasn't Tech always the one that was advocating that like maybe Crosshair is still good, like we got to save Crosshair?
Oh, I don't remember specifically. Oh, I'm such a Bad Batch fan.
It was either Echo. I feel like it was Echo and Tech. They were always ones who were kind of thinking about the bigger picture and thinking more than about their own interests. And I don't know. I think there's something very interesting there potentially. But there was a comment made during the fight where Clone X tells Crosshair, "You had your chance to be one of us. You chose the wrong side." And to the average viewer, because it was set up earlier in the episode that they tried to turn Crosshair into one of these guys and it didn't work, right? So for you being a viewer, you're like, oh yeah, Crosshair had a chance to be one of these dudes and he chose the wrong side. Yeah, duh. Or like, oh yeah, Crosshair didn't choose the Empire. He betrayed everybody. But if you're super woke like me, you might think you had the chance to be one of us, meaning the members of the Bad Batch who you left on Kamino. You chose the wrong side. You chose the Empire. It's Tech. It's Tech talking to Crosshair saying you chose the wrong side. And I'm going to fight you now.
Got him. I
think there's subtext here. Do you think that I'm on the stuff thing? Because I feel like there's a subtext that is the actual text, but like we're led to believe it's something different, but it's actually coming from Tech being like, you should have joined us back on Kamino in season 1.
I mean, I don't want to actually but
oh no,
subtext doesn't exist. And these accomplished, talented writers would literally never involve subtext as part of their scripts. That's not their vibe. And why would they? Why would they do that to you? Yeah, of course it's subtext. I mean, it's meant to mirror the experience that we've known before. And again, why create this juxtaposition between these two experiences, or this, rather, not a juxtaposition. Well, the juxtaposition between the Shadow clones and our Bad Batchers, but the parallel experience of that moment of choosing the wrong side. You could have been us, but you're not. why set up those emotional stakes if you're not going to pay him off?
Right. And like, what does this clone know about Crosshair? Like, why is it so personal to even make that comment? It feels so pointed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was definitely personal, especially when these clones have their own identities stripped from them. Right? Like, especially when their point of view is so impersonal, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So narrow. It's just like, I serve the Empire. That's my goal.
Right.
There's no emotion. And then lastly, why throw Clone X off of a waterfall? Only for him to climb out of the pond at the bottom and survive. Why make it a point to show that? Why not just throw in the next guy? Why not just say, oh, he died. Here's the next Clone X. Why? Because it's Tech. And also, what is the significance of this guy being thrown off a waterfall? Well, in case you forgot, last time we saw Tech, he fell a bajillion miles up from the sky and hit the ground and possibly died.
He didn't. He's still alive because we just saw him walk out of a waterfall, obviously.
This is like literally telegraphing, hey, this guy's Tech because he fell and he also lived. Haha, Tech never dies, even though he falls really freaking far from the sky.
Yeah, and I don't feel like we're gonna. I mean, we could just be talking out of our asses here, but I don't really think they're gonna introduce a new character, a new Scooby-Doo villain,
right?
When we've got Hemlock, like when we've got the Empire, we know that we're getting Miss Asajj Ventress at some point in this season. I mean, we don't know if she's gonna be like a villain, but she is sort of a villainous character, if you will. So why include another boogeyman when you could actually give it emotional weight? Again, see, this is what I'm saying. The direction of the show feels very focused. The narrative feels very intentional.
Yeah, like imagine they capture this dude at some point and they take off the helmet and it's like, oh, it's Bob.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, okay, thanks.
Or be like, oh, I don't. It's another clone.
Or like, oh, it's a random obscure clone from like season 3 of the Clone Wars. And if you watch the Clone Wars, you would know who that is. It's like, no, we're in the Bad Batch. We're watching this show.
Yeah, we're at a point where that doesn't work anymore with this show because we're 3 seasons into this show. And also we've seen over the past handful of episodes, we're bringing everybody and their mother back on this show. We've got Hauser, Wolf, Rex, Echo. We've got, the Shadows, like we've got Chuchi, we've got Sing, you know, like everybody's making a grand return. So,
and also too, the whole point about these guys losing their identity and losing their number. In all fairness, even if they took off the helmet, how would they be able to distinguish one clone from the other? Right?
Unless he's wearing glasses.
Unless he's wearing glasses and he's Tech. Then you're like, oh, it's Tech, right? Like, now I will say the only alternative to Tech that I would accept is Fives.
Okay.
It would make no sense, but I would accept. I'm just saying,
yeah, sure.
I would accept it.
Sure,
but also, I don't want that because it would like ruin Fives' sacrifice and you know that thing. But
and then people who you know don't know the story of Fives would be like, who's this guy?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So it's a no-win situation unless it's Tech. So like I feel like it has to be Tech, and there's gonna be a moment where like this guy says something, or he just finally takes off his helmet and is like, "It's me."
He's
but he
like,
won't know it's me.
Oh, hold on, I gotta adjust my glasses under this helmet. Pop off, adjust up. Shit.
Sorry, I can't see. But the sad thing about it is he won't even know who the Batch is, like, or his memories. Are his memories gone? Like, how do they even get him back to who he was?
Right. Do you know who we will need to make a grand return later in the season? Nala Se.
Nala Se. You don't say.
But maybe Nala Se is the key to all of this. Or Emery. Emery has a comeback.
Or could Asajj Ventress, maybe she comes into the picture, she has a little like voodoo magic with her force powers and their minds, and it's like, here's who you were. She like puts her hands on their head and they like remember everything.
That would be less emotionally satisfying for me. Sorry.
she's just walking around in a line. Like it's like Duck Duck Goose. She's just going like, through the clone. She's like, here you go. Here you go.
She's like,
here you go.
What is it? The Vulcan mind meld?
Yeah.
Vulcan mind melding them, essentially.
Like a little Vulcan mind melding in my Star Wars. Come on. Oh, just a little
why
bit.
not?
A little bit.
Right, why not? Yeah, no, I think it would be more emotionally fulfilling if it were somebody else. Sorry to, Asajj Ventress and whatever her plot point may be in the story.
Who knows? I think it's Tech, though. I feel like it has to happen at some point.
And if it's not, everybody can listen to this episode after May the 1st, and they can point and laugh at us.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I am setting myself up for disappointment, and I know it. I know if Tech is actually dead, I'm going to be disappointed. Like, just because I just feel like it's not right. I feel like something is amiss when I'm watching the show, and I'm just like, the void is felt. Like, do you feel the void of Tech? Because I know we think he died according to the show, but it's like I don't feel like we are right in the world. Like, things don't feel right without him.
I think that's part of the point, is like that the team doesn't feel balanced until everybody's there. So that's why it was so satisfying to get Echo back in these episodes, because the team has a little bit more of a connection to each other, and like, or like the all the points of the star are coming together, and then we can connect it, and it will make the pattern of the star. And now we've got a bright star in the night sky. I don't know. But like, well, now you know what, my constellation thing works actually here. That's what I was going for in my brain. The constellation thing works. If you don't have all the stars, you can't make the pretty picture. Therefore, Tech must return. But also, it becomes more satisfying the more the team members get back together. So having Crosshair back, having Echo back, and even our secondary team members, the clones that we love from other stories in Bad Batch and Clone Wars, it makes the show feel more full. So the missing link, the missing puzzle pieces, of course, Tech.
Can't everybody just live just this once? Come on.
They gotta. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. We've done it before in Star Wars. That really cathartic, happy ending where everybody lives, and I find myself in the fetal position on the floor at 2 a.m. If you know, you know. A certain Alexander Friedbuck, love of my life. He has a beard now. He's gone through some shit. But yeah, anyway, so I think we've set a precedent that everybody can live, and it's not, taking away from the story. In fact, adds satisfaction to the story. I don't need a happy ending for every story, but this is one that I desperately want to happen in for these characters, because they have gone through so much, and not a single bit of it has been their fault. So.
We've thrown around the word identity quite a bit tonight. Clones having an identity crisis, their identity being erased. We don't know who is who because their numbers are gone. We had a 2-parter today. The next 2-parter is April 3rd. And guess what those episodes are called? Identity Crisis and Point of No Return.
Ooh. Funny how that happens.
Have an inkling that if it is Tech, we will find out around that time, which April 3rd, a couple days after Easter, he has risen. I said it. Tech is risen.
Tech is apparently Jesus now.
My Taylor Swift theory brain rot has now bled into Star Wars, where I'm like, oh, they planned the whole release schedule so the Tech episode return would be on Easter because he is risen. He is Jesus. He has fallen and sacrificed his body, and he will rise once again. He is the blood of Tech, the body of Tech. He's back.
Who will?
I'm not religious, by the way. I just think it's funny.
who will roll away the stone? Tech will roll away the stone, and he'll be able to walk out of there.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, that's
preaching about the Bible, and I'm just like, I don't know what that is.
That's how he is risen. It was it's buried, and then the stone gets rolled away, and he walks out of there, and everybody's like, how would you roll away this really big stone? It's like, well, because he's the Son of God, he's risen. Anyway, I don't know if I consider myself very religious these days, but the Bible has some very interesting stories in it. They're very compelling.
Yeah. I'm not religious either, but he is risen. That's all I'm saying. Point made. Tech, Jesus confirmed.
Anyway.
Tech is the son of the Wills.
The son of the Wills. Oh man, I'm actually
the Wills
I'm watching
from
this.
From a Certain Point of View book are like, this guy's got to live. Let's write him back. Let's write him back into the story.
Right. Are we the Wills right now? Are we the Wills?
Oh my
We're
God.
like tech lives. We got to do something about it. I'm currently watching. So I like when we record these episodes, I always like have the episodes playing in the background, or have like how at least have the episodes up so I can scrub where I need to scrub if we're going to talk about a particular moment. And I just watched our Clone X attempt to drown Crosshair again. And I mean, the first time that was a little bit alarming because I was like, oh my God, we're going to literally drown him.
Imagine if he actually died and the credits just rolled.
No, but I was like, this is a pretty nasty. Like this is pretty nasty. Like we're seeing him like struggle under the water. That's like not great.
Yeah.
But that fight sequence is like quite intense. It's a bit alarming how serious and fast paced that moment feels until we see Clone X like fall off the waterfall and see our good buddy Crosshair get rescued. But then the tension stays because it's not our heroes who come to pick them up. Can we talk about that a little bit? I know we talked a little bit about Clone Rebellion and that sort of
and
stuff,
Wolf.
but can we talk about Wolf?
Yeah, we got to talk about that moment because that's a huge one. Go ahead.
No, I want to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, we have this like essentially a standoff of sorts between people who know each other. Once again, all played by the same man. But we have this moment where Rex looks to appeal to Wolf's empathy and his sense of identity. And he asks him, like, you have to realize, you're hunting a child, right? A child who is also one of us. Wolf agrees and lets him go. And that felt like a pretty bold choice in the moment.
And then what did he say? Hey, they're traitors. And Wolf's like, but they're also clones. We owe them that. Like, oh my God. Seeds of rebellion. Small moments that will break the siege. Like, this is the Nemec Manifesto. Like, it's this moment right here that is like a little chip in the Empire's armor, right? Like, this is it.
Solidarity.
Right?
It's just
a small act. Oh my God, it's so good. That's why Star Wars is so good, because it's not about Jedi all of the time. It's about regular people making small acts of insurrection. Like, that is hope. That is fighting oppression. That is like, that's reality. Like, none of us are Jedi. We face oppressive forces in our real world, and all we can do is band together when the going gets tough and do the right thing when we know it's the right thing to do. And that's what Wolf does here. Like, that's why it's just like the ending of this episode shocked me, because I was like, oh my God, that's wild.
Yeah, and that whole scene is rather quite still. They're all in like the same places while they're having this conversation. Nobody makes any sudden movements. And then we have the rest of the team and the Bachelor ship like appear behind them, and now it becomes like a real standoff. And I love how the emotions are running so high and the tensions are running so high, and there is this appeal to emotion, but the scene itself is so still. And I thought that was like a really strong moment overall.
Also noteworthy was the fact that when all the clones did go on the Bad Batch's ship, they turned their backs to Wolf.
Yes, I thought about that too. Oh my gosh, yes, because I was like, are they going to start backing up? Are they going to start like taking steps back? No, they trust him in that moment, and they turn around. And I thought that was a strong move, and also a shows well on Wolf too.
Yeah, that Wolf's like, damn, they really trust me.
Yeah, that he stuck by his word too.
Yeah, incredible stuff.
Wolf's
I'm excited to see if Wolf comes back into the picture. Yeah, because I feel like, again, the cavalry has arrived. We got to get every single clone.
Like every clone I've even ever heard of, like.
Yeah. And Gungi. Gotta have a couple Jedi in there, right? I know we're like, the Jedi don't save everything. And we're like, but what if we had a little Gungi? And he saved the day.
Here's the deal. You're not going to hear me be like, Wookiee?
Nah, I'm good on the Wookiees.
Nah. No, you're always going to hear me be like, yes. a Wookiee.
Did you have any other thoughts on Wolf for that final scene, or I have one other final thought on Tech that I wanted to share as well.
I'd like to hear it.
I did see on Twitter that people were hyper analyzing the infrared image of the Clone X, and people were saying, why do his legs look like super, super skinny? And people thought they're cybernetic legs, like, because the infrared, like, it was like a normal sized body, and then like it looked like stick legs. And people were like, maybe Tech lost his legs in the fall. And
There's
maybe he has cybernetic
legs.
Actually. There's a lot of, I've been seeing a lot of tweets about it. And I'm like, okay, I see it. I see the vision here. But I also had the thought too of like, what were Tech's last words to Wrecker is like, when have we ever followed orders? And like the cruelty of then Tech living a life where he only follows orders after that as an assassin clone. I think there's a bit of cruel poetry there. And again, everything is intentional. Everything in this episode was intentional. Everything leading up to the potential of a Tech revival is intentional. And I'm getting to the point where I do want to start watching the episode. I've been watching them after work, but I do want to start watching them in the morning because I don't want to learn about the Tech thing via Twitter. You know, I don't want that to happen. I want to experience that for myself.
My recommendation is to find yourself a secondary hobby that you just happen to follow enough people on your timeline that you scroll by it. You don't get it every other tweet. You get it every 6 tweets, you know? May I recommend...
just delete X off my phone. I can delete Twitter off my phone.
You know what you can do? What I recently discovered, which I'm actually not very good at keeping, but I do turn it on. Focus mode. At least on my phone, I can turn on focus mode. And it doesn't even give me any notifications. And when I go to click on the app, it's like, hey girl, you're on focus mode. And I'm like, take a 5-minute break, or okay. And then it doesn't let me in the app. And then after 5 minutes, it goes gray and then X's out of the app. It literally is like, bye.
That's a smart idea, actually.
So you can just
because even if I'm not on
Twitter,
Star Wars might feel bold and just like tweet a character poster of Tech and be like, guess who's back? And it's like 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. I'm just like,
right.
Okay.
You're like, okay, so
Thanks.
when was I supposed to find that out between, you know, like living a life and being an adult? But that's fine.
Cool, I guess. But yeah, I'm excited, Sarah. I'm having a really good time with the show right now. We're just vibing, you know. I'm very like High Republic minded. We're both High Republic minded. We want the Acolyte ASAP. We're expecting a trailer sometime between now and like end of next week, hopefully. I don't know. We're just guessing.
I'm honestly, we're gonna say that every week until they release it.
Yeah, they'll probably release it like tomorrow morning after we record this, and people are like, they're dumb. They said it was next week.
Right.
Stop listening to this podcast. But I'm having a good time. I'm looking forward to all the future episodes.
I'm really enthusiastic about how the series will end. So I look forward to going on this journey for the next month and a half or so.
Well, I think we've said all we had to about the last 4 episodes of the Bad Batch. So we will be back in a couple of weeks. I think we're going to do like the next couple episodes leading up to that double feature. So you'll probably hear from us sometime in April on the Bad Batch. I'm very excited. I want to know what Identity Crisis is all about.
Yes.
Please give it to me right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also sad we're halfway through this season, so it's approaching quickly. But
it's crazy how fast it's already gone, I feel like.
Yeah. But if you want to hear more from us, and if you enjoyed this conversation, you can find us on all of our socials, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Letterboxd, wherever you want to follow us and hear our thoughts. We also are on any podcast platform of your choice. So if you want to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed the episode, helps other folks find the show. Makes us feel pretty all warm and fuzzy inside. You know, it's always a good feeling. And we have a lot coming in the pipe this year. A lot of good things to look forward to.
We, every little while, like look at our calendar and are like, oh my gosh, we're busy with Star Wars, which is great. So I'm really excited about it. But I also have to take a moment to thank our patrons who help keep the lights on here at Friends of the Force. We are so grateful to them. AJ, Ben, Brian, Cheryl, Clay, David, Deborah, Emma, Jennifer, Katie, Knights of Ren, Leanne, Logan, Lucy, Lindsay, Matthew, Nicole, Rob, Ruth, Saber Bouquet, Santa, Skytalker, Stephen, Tom, Travis, and our newest patron, Topher. Thank you all so much for your support. We are incredibly grateful. your financial support, and also just thank you for everybody who takes the time to listen to the episode and join us in a conversation about Star Wars, whether this is your first episode or your bajillionth. Sincerely, thank you so much for your time. And we hope that you are staying happy, healthy, hydrated, and enjoying all things Star Wars. So we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. And we only did an hour this time, Sarah. That's been a while since we've done that. So we will stop here.
Go team.
Go team. Yeah. Go us. Thank you all for listening. And until next time, may the Force be with you always.